ECS 210, a personal digital response. Defining curriculum seems so simple when we start with the literal definition. Merriam-Webster defines curriculum as the set of courses offered by an institution. This definition directly links to the classical Latin translation of carrere, where it meant running, or course, as in race course. Although this literal definition is a great place to start, through my time in ECS 210, I can tell you that there is much more to curriculum than its literal definition. On day one of the course, we began trying to create our own definition. Is curriculum the government-mandated documents that we use to define our courses or set of courses in the province? Is it the explicit, formal written curriculum? Well, yes, but that's only part of it. If we were to simply leave curriculum there, we are ignoring the fact that in curriculum as it is written and planned, we only address part of the learning that takes place in schools. By thinking of curriculum as only this formal documentation, we are denying the fact that learning of other kinds happens within a lesson, within a classroom, and within a school. This learning is often referred to as the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum is what we teach students about how to live in society that isn't part of the formal curriculum. The hidden curriculum deals with ideas like lining up, sharing, social cues, and etiquette. These are the unspoken societal norms that we teach within a school, a lesson, or a classroom. This is where oppressive ideas such as the image of a good student come from. In Kumashiro's writing, we see a common sense model of who this student is. The good student listens well, attends regularly, comes with a background knowledge that presupposes an understanding of the dominant culture. The good student is smart, eager, and in this common sense definition, probably white and middle class and male. These ideas are embedded within Canada's idea of schooling and find their way into curriculum in very hidden and oppressive ways. It is for reasons such as the model of the good student and other examples of these hidden, unspoken biases that implicit, hidden curriculum in some cases can bear as much or arguably more importance than the written, formal curriculum on who a student becomes. That, however, is not the end of the line when it comes to issues when we define curriculum simply as written, planned, formal curriculum. The curriculum shapes students by what it teaches explicitly and what it teaches implicitly, but what it leaves out can also have just as much impact on students. What isn't taught in schools is often referred to as the null curriculum. The null curriculum is incredibly important in creating a definition of curriculum, as it is our first place to really attend to the issues of prejudice and oppression that can come into play when we are looking at theoretical frameworks and worldviews that help shape how curriculum is developed. The key question here is who decides what gets in and what gets left out. At this point, it's worth noting some of the historical frameworks and theoretical perspectives that have shaped much of our understanding and development of curriculum for students in Saskatchewan. This is where we can start to see a little bit of who decides what goes into the formal curriculum and what is left out. In our ECS 210 class, we've had a chance to discuss the writing of Kevin Kumashiro and his concepts of common sense. Common sense often refers to the creating of a common understanding or the idea of what everyone should know. This definition of common sense becomes troubling when we start seeing how implicit biases and prejudices are worked into ideas around schooling and curriculum. This common sense approach to curriculum often surrounds and validates itself with the phrase of because that's how it's always been done. This type of common sense is difficult to recognize and can easily create oppression and prejudice. If we refuse to question curriculum because of fear of disrupting the status quo, then we are allowing common sense to shape curriculum in a very dangerous way. This curricular model of common sense stems from the ideas that we see in the transmission model of education. If we were to look specifically at the social efficiency model of education and the Tyler rationale for curriculum development, we see how common sense can oppress. Creating curriculum that follows a formula to transmit knowledge from teacher to student not only implies that knowledge is finite, it also refuses to take into account any contexts. In order to challenge this idea of curriculum as planned and taught, we need to look at other educational theorists. For myself, this seemed like a great place to look at some more progressive curriculum theorists, such as Maxine Greene or Ken Robinson. However, switching the theoretical lens that we view curriculum through is not the silver bullet solution for issues that exist in curriculum development or delivery. Yes, it can help support students by challenging how we deliver the content of the written curriculum. It can challenge us on both the hidden and null curriculum, but it can still leave out ideas of place in the experience of curriculum. This idea of place was my next step in my change of understanding curriculum. In particular, it was in response to a lecture given by Mike Capello about his time in teaching in Punishai. Mike challenged us to think about our place in relation to a curriculum that uses phrases like the indigenous experience. For Mike, as for many other teachers, this can be troubling, as it implies that students we are teaching do not live this experience. Or worse yet, that we should be teaching students about their own lived experience. This again is an issue of context and place. This is one of the places where we are challenged as teachers to think about and address our privilege head on. For me, challenging this written curriculum up until this point had still been through a lens of dominant cultures. Although the curriculum I envision may not be pale, stale, and male, I can't shy away from the fact that I still represent at least 2/3 of that phrase. This lecture challenged me to think about how my privilege and place impact how I will, or for that matter, can, deliver curriculum. This was also illustrated by Dwayne Donald's On What Terms Can We Speak lecture, in which he defines colonialism as an extended process of denying relationship. Dwayne Donald also speaks to the idea that the way that you think about the relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal peoples has a distinct bearing on how you take it up in the classroom. Dwayne Donald is a curriculum theorist that I appreciate immensely, as it is his perspectives on difference and inclusion that have forced me to challenge my beliefs and confront my privilege. This, for me, is a lived experience of what Kevin Kilmashiro describes as learning in discomforting ways. It challenges me to think about my privilege and what implicit biases that have allowed me to accept as common sense. This really reflected on me that when I think of the classroom that I will be teaching, I often imagine one that looks similar to those I experienced as a student, primarily white and middle class. This assumption allows the kind of language that Mike draws attention to within the Saskatchewan formal curriculum and that we see in so many curriculum documents in regards to the incorporation of Indigenous content to go unchallenged, because we assume that we will be teaching primarily non-Indigenous students. As I move forward as a consumer, producer, critic, deliverer, etc. of curriculum, this uncomfortable moment of learning will be one that sticks with me. As I look ahead to my career, a career that deals constantly with the struggles surrounding curriculum, it will be important for me to continue to grow in a way that promotes a culture of inclusion by challenging and identifying those moments of learning that are cognitive disconnects. As I continue to deliver this curriculum, it is critical that I remain aware of a place and how it affects myself as a teacher, as well as how the impacts of place on my students will allow them to interact or not with curriculum. I hope that in this awareness, I can continue to grow as an educator that promotes anti-racist, anti-oppressive pedagogy and anti-racist, anti-oppressive curriculum in not only my own classroom, but in education within Saskatchewan as a whole. This means continuing to struggle with uncomfortable learning and not backing down from chances to engage others in uncomfortable learning as well. As I head into the profession of teaching, I often worry that the theory and beliefs we develop as students in the space of the university may come up against hard-fought opposition in classrooms and staff rooms. But I hope that I can create a place that others can join in challenging learning and challenging the curriculum in all forms, formal, hidden, null, etc., in a similar way to how I was challenged in my understanding through ECS 210.